Everybody who's watching this, you're already one of our clients. We're not just putting this out for the general population to hear, but as you can tell, we're switching from a weekly live call to a recorded call that we're going to put into our Facebook group. And there's also another Facebook group, so you would have to have entered that to get to this. We found that a lot of people were consuming what we had to say. They were talking to us, they were getting it, but it just made it too many moving parts for all of us to get on a call at once. We only had at most 5 people on the live call, but we'd have about 40 to 50 people watching it after the fact. So it just made sense to do it this way. So this is our first pre-recorded podcast or clinic success call. And Angela, today, I guess we're going to talk about the leaky bucket.
Yeah, and I do want to say I'm hoping if we can when we post this into the Facebook group, we can answer questions, right? Under the comments, we'll be keeping an eye on that. So if there are
Absolutely.
any questions on the topic or any feedback, we're going to keep an eye on that. And feel free also in the comments to maybe drop a comment on what you'd like to hear about. Um, that'd be great. So we're going to keep an eye on this. And yeah, I wanted to talk about this leaky bucket phenomenon. You and I have been tossing it around for a long time. This idea of, and we're in marketing, right? We're attracting patients to clinics. But what I find is docs can get really, and actually any business owner can get really hung up in trying to attract new clients and so many new clients and attract new clients. And they forget that some clients walk out the back door just as fast as they come in the front door. And the leaky bucket phenomenon is obviously you have this bucket and in comes the water, which is the new patients. And there's holes in this bucket where the patients pour out just as fast as the water goes in. And I wanted to ask you, like it happens in our practice, in your practices, in your history. Have you noticed that with other businesses and marketing, the same phenomenon of people going out the back door as quick as they come in?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I used to call it's funny that you call it leaky bucket. That's probably a better one. I used to call it the leaky boat because I always figured that, for example, I'd run into the odd business who, when I was doing marketing before, I focused mostly primarily on chiropractors. You'd see somebody who was paying $2,000 a month on ads to try to generate people to come to see them and become their customer. And
Yeah.
yet they wouldn't fix their reviews. They'd have bad reviews. So all they were
Mm,
really doing was driving people to be interested in them, check them out, decide they weren't very good, and then go to a competitor. So in effect,
yeah.
they're paying ad spend to drive people to their competitor. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen that a lot for sure.
And what I've seen is people who really want to grow at a hyper speed need to not only turn the tap on, which is what we do with the ads and through other coaching stuff, but they need to start plugging the holes. And if you plug the holes one at a time, you start to find the bucket fills up and success comes pretty quickly, if that makes sense. And I wanted to touch on the call today about some ways to plug those holes, right? But I also think this applies not just to chiropractic. If anybody else is listening to this, like restaurants and salons, I'm thinking about that. The restaurants work so hard to get a client. The fulfillment's really important, right? You ever walk into a restaurant and have a bad experience? Has that happened to you?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So what are the chances you've never been there before? What are the chances that you're going to go back?
Slim and none, of course, if it's a bad experience. And the
Yeah.
thing that I'm always mystified, and we talk about this off when we're not recording all the time, and you're always laughing at the question is, I always come to you and say, don't the chiropractors know this already? Because I'm looking at it through the lens of someone who manages and runs small businesses. But then it
Yeah.
occurred to me, chiropractic college is what, 4 years?
It's 4 years, yeah. Plus, you got to have 3 years to get into that. So
You have
it's
to
a
an
year in
undergraduate
university.
degree, yeah. But
Yeah.
how much of that 4 years is teaching you how to run a business as opposed to like that's an
Um,
actual skill. They have master's degrees on that. Like
yeah,
it's tough.
I think people don't think of it like a business. So I graduated 17 years ago and we had a business class, but it wasn't super extensive. Things might have changed now, so I'm not maybe the person to ask. But yeah, a lot of chiropractors don't look at their practice as a business. You and I have talked about this before, right? They're a clinician. They want to be a clinician. That's what they were taught. They don't want to be a business person and I think that's a mistake. because unfortunately, and you can agree with me or not, whether you want to or not, you own a business, you collect money, and you have a staff, and so you have to get versed in the business side of it. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that if somebody doesn't want to see, and I have absolutely, I do it all day long, talking to chiropractors, obviously with what I do. And of course, not being a chiropractor, a lot of chiropractors take it upon themselves to explain to me that they're called, they're healers. And I appreciate that. I'm a big fan of chiropractors. But isn't it true that if you don't run your business very well, you're going to see fewer people and therefore help fewer people? Or if you run your business really well, won't you be able to see more people and spread the word more and expand and get more people the benefit of chiropractic? Like, I don't think it's a
That's
bad
exact.
thing to be
Yeah.
considered a business.
It's considered like when you talk about business, thinking about money, but you're absolutely right. If you want to serve more people and you're a clinician that wants to help more people, then you got to learn how to run your business. Yeah, interesting. And back to that restaurant comment, I remember watching John Taffer. I don't know if you know his
Yeah.
show on
Bar
television, right?
rescue.
And he says you have three visits in order to solidify a potential lifelong client in the restaurant. So you give them great service three times in a row, right? You and you to the restaurant. That's why a lot of restaurants ask that. And I remember the episode that I watched is the reason why they ask, are you new to this restaurant? Is because if you are, they tag you and there's a system with the hostess and the waiter and the chef. They know that you're a new customer. So they give you a little bit more of the white glove experience because they know if you come back twice or three times, your chance of coming back goes up to 40 to 60% to be a return customer. So you got those three visits to really win them over. And I even watched Shark Tank. I watched a lot of Shark Tank too. And the questions they ask is what is when you have a product and they sell products online is what is the repeat customer? What's the percentage? Who's reordering, right? And usually if they give them a low number like 5 or 10%, they know the product might stink, right? But if you're getting a 30, 40, 50% repeat customer, you probably know that you have a good product. And I think that applies to chiropractic offices as well. Like we think about these new patients coming in. Yes, they're not going to stay forever, but how many come back? I'd love to have that stat. How many repeat customers come back? So they come for 10, 20, 15, 20 visits. How many are going to come back would be an interesting stat to track. I use the stat patient visit average. So that lets me know and my clients know how long that patient stays in the office. And I think when I talked to you about this last year, I said the average PVA in North America is 10. You nearly fell off your seat.
Yeah.
Were you surprised? Were you surprised?
It was because what's that, about 50 to $100 per visit? So you're talking 500 to $1,000 in lifetime value of a patient.
That's right. And the bigger question I asked too is I not only look at it from a monetary point of view, I'm like, are you really getting them better in 8 to 10 visits? I believe the answer is no, right? If you know anything about physiology and healing, it's pretty hard to fix a problem or cure somebody after 7 or 8 or 9 visits. If you're only asking them about pain, okay, maybe, but physiologically, I don't think we understand that we're not making that much of a change. And I think people got to stop thinking about people's conditions and start thinking about people and their goals and their lifestyle, right? There's a lot of people that want to use our services over and over again, right? That's
Okay,
why they go
so
to you.
let me interrupt. And anybody who's watching us can tell this is unscripted because we have really not planned this out at all. So you just said something interesting. You said if you're just thinking about pain. Now I know some chiropractors say, I know it's not good for my business, but if I can get someone out of pain in one visit, I will. That's one question. The other question, I want to hear your thoughts on that. The other question
Yeah,
I have is I spend all day long explaining to new clients of ours that we have to advertise to condition specific stuff to get people to come through the door. And I know
yeah,
that's true. You know that's true. So what's the
yeah.
mindset the chiropractor has to have to acknowledge that's how you get them through the door, but now you've got them through the door. Now what do you do? And I don't just mean about specific, I know you've got scripts and you've got all that stuff, but I'm just talking mindset and the way they're looking at it.
I think pain motivates people, and if you're silly to think that it doesn't, and to the amount of population that are looking for a wellness based chiropractor is extremely low. I mean, it's been a while since I know the numbers, but we're talking like 5%. It's really low. So why would you advertise to those people when the majority of the population are walking around in pain? Even if you want, even if you're a wellness-based chiropractor, you have to talk their language. If you're not talking the patient's language, they're never going to come in your office. And a lot of chiropractors look at that as a bait and switch. Well, you're going to talk about pain, you're going to flip this story and sell them a year wellness care program. Well, you got to be more artful about it. So, of course, you have to listen. I would advertise to pain. I do advertise to pain, and not to guarantee results, just to say, hey, we understand that you have these things going on. Let's talk about it, right? And as you talk about it, you realize pain is definitely the motivator, but really what motivates people is how it's affecting their lifestyle. So the chiropractor listening to this has to improve their consultation and has to study a little bit on this topic about how to do a consultation to really understand why the person's there. They're not there because they have shoulder pain. They're there because the pain maybe wakes them up, makes them grumpy. They can't play pickleball, whatever. I know we've talked about that on previous recordings, but they have to be able to transition the conversation from pain to lifestyle. And then when we start talking about lifestyle, that's how you can then encourage them to stay on for more than 7, 8, 9, 10 visits, right? It doesn't always work like that. That's why it's called a patient visit average. Sometimes they do come 7 or 8 times. It's rare, but sometimes they do. And sometimes so my patient visit average is 100. That means some people come 150 times or 200 times because they've made it part of their routine, just like going to the gym or going to yoga class. They want to have their weekly or biweekly adjustment. So yeah, docs, they get into their head too much. As I'm not advertising to pain because I'm a wellness-based chiropractor. I want you to think about that because the amount of the population that they're interested in is that very small. I'd rather talk to the majority in
And
the
they
middle,
probably
right? And some
have
people,
chiropractors already.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's a great point. Yeah, they do. And so I always say this: there's a small part of the population that is never going to go to a chiropractor. Just you're never going to get it. 10%, 20%, whatever. Then there's 5 to 7% that are going religiously and have chiropractors and talk about wellness. And why would I advertise to them? We've talked about this with some of our potential clients. Those ads are just not that stimulating. I want to talk to the middle part of the population who may have tried it and didn't have success or haven't tried it and are thinking about it. I want to talk to them. And what are they motivated and what do they understand? Pain, right? Or dysfunction. They don't understand typical chiropractic terms, right? So I'm totally fine advertising to that and then being able to have an artful conversation about, hey, let's talk about how this is affecting your lifestyle.
So now I know that there are going to be some of our clients that are watching this that are going to be honest enough to, at least inside their head, maybe not outwardly, think, uh-oh, maybe I have a leaky bucket. What do you say to those guys? What should they start looking for or doing or
Well,
think?
yeah, that's what I'd like to do is just say, hey, these are some common holes we see in practices bucket, right? The number one thing I see that the biggest leak that comes out of buckets is the doctor's faith, confidence, and belief in their product. And I know that might sit unwell with some people that are listening to this, but I think that the doctor's faith, confidence, belief in their product has a direct correlation to how busy their practice is. The question is, when is the last course you took? When is the last technique course that you took? What are you reading? When's the last conference you've been to where you connect with other people? Who are you connecting with? And are you connecting with other successful chiropractors? Those things that people think confidence is hard to gain. Actually, it's not, right? The first thing that comes before confidence, you know what that is?
What?
It's competence.
Okay.
So competence comes first, so you can do it, and then confidence, right? So all you have to do is become competent, is do small action steps, is get out and, like I said, book the next seminar, book the next technique course, right? Hang out, have a unit group. Call a unit group is hang out with 3 or 4 docs that are crushing it in your neighborhood, right? So do the things and your typical reading week to week. What are you reading? Are you on your phone lots? Are you actually reading stuff that's going to increase your faith, confidence, belief in your product? So that's one of the biggest leaks that I see. The second thing is their methods with their patients. So their technique or their systems, their verbiage and communication. A lot of docs underestimate the power of verbal and nonverbal communication. Okay, verbal and nonverbal communication, eye contact, your mannerisms, and what you're saying to the patient. So you asked about business classes in chiropractic. They never taught this, how to communicate to a patient. I find you got to communicate the scripts that we have at Clinic 360 and the stuff that I do through the Santee Consulting is the communication is based on a grade 5 to 6 level. That's how we're communicating with people. They don't want to know big terminology. They just want to keep it simple and understand it. The communication is key. And do you have scripts that are proven? There's a lot of good scripts and systems out there. Do you have one? And a lot of people don't like recipes. I get it. I just want to be clinician. But Greg, there's a reason why Starbucks and the keg are successful
Yeah.
because they have
Or
recipes.
yeah. And when it comes to, even when you take it away from the clinician, your support staff, like you could be, forgive me for Wolfgang Puck, I don't know any other famous chefs, but when you have somebody coming into the restaurant, you want everybody doing the same thing. Like you want to be at the McDonald's because you want, when you interchange staff, you want everybody to have the same experience when they come through. And one thing I wasn't surprised at all, but having visited your clinic last weekend, it was so impressive on how you really do walk the talk. Like it was clean as a whistle. Your staff were just super friendly. You had a spot for kids. You had, the bathrooms were just super clean. Like everything was perfect. And then how you even went to the trouble of showing me your patient list and how you went from room to room. I was really impressed, really impressed.
It's interesting. Thank you. It's interesting. That comes with a lot of practice. It's interesting that you say that because that's one of the other biggest holes in buckets is the front desk staff,
Mhm.
their faith, confidence, and belief in the product. So when they're on getting on a phone, booking a patient or rebooking a patient or trying to avoid cancellations, what is their faith, confidence, and belief in chiropractic or your product? When's the last course you've sent them to or encouraged them to do? So you
Well,
saw how we, sorry, go ahead.
what's interesting, and I imagine that this is just foundational for future conversations. Stephen, and I'm not gonna, and I know you've had the same thing. We've dealt with clinic owners who are hiring us only to be told that their employees won't do this and won't do that. And it's, you don't want to, your management tool isn't a hammer. You don't want to hammer them and say, there's a saying, if all you have is a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail. But still, the ability to do team building and try to get everybody doing it because they want to, not because you want them to. So team building is a whole huge tool in your arsenal, in your toolbox.
Yeah, I just posted that in the group. It's yeah. When's the last time they've been to a seminar to increase their faith, confidence, and belief? What scripts and procedures do they use, or do they just say whatever they want on the telephone? They have the ability to make it and break it for the docs, and a lot of docs don't realize that they can make it and break it for you. And I know this will sound a little bit probably off-putting, but that's okay because I like talking raw like this because we want docs to really thrive. Is they're probably never going to care about your business as much as you do.
And some of the
And that might
docs are
sound,
such nice people, they're too agreeable to have a difficult conversation with the staff member.
that's my point is this is your practice, this is your life to those of you listening, and they may not care about it as much as you, and that's okay. So keep that in the back of your mind. But can you enroll them to see the bigger picture and get behind helping people? Absolutely. So I find if you put the time into your front desk with the training, with scripts and procedures, you'll close one of those holes in the bucket, and the bucket will start to fill. And that's why when I do any of my consulting, I want to know what's going on at the front desk. Whatever onboarding questions we ask, I want to know what's going on at the front desk, who's there, how many people, what they're saying, right? Because they can really make it or break it for the docs. The other thing too is interesting is you brought a good topic about the office space, right? So things like parking, people overlook, right? Things like parking I've had clients that are in the best chiropractors, but in the worst spots, and parking is just absolutely a nuisance, or there's stairs or whatever. So parking, the cleanliness you brought up, right? People are coming to a repeat customer. They want to make sure that the place is clean. And if I was a customer, went to the keg and I looked down at the washrooms and they were dirty, was the kitchen dirty? Is the cook washing their hands, right? So people are judging you all the time. They're judging you the moment the staff answers the phone. They walk into your place. Is it organized? Is it neat? And is it clean? So the decor, cleanliness, the parking, those things when you saw last weekend, those are not by chance. It's not like someone got motivated and wanted to do it that weekend. There's systems in place for that. Cleaning, decor, change, marketing, cleanliness. We're having an office spring clean and a paint, just a quick repaint. And the office is only 3 years old as far as paint job, but we're gonna touch things up because a crack in the wall is a crack in your mind, is a crack in your practice, right?
Right.
Clutter in your office is clutter in your practice, right? So I say you got to weed the mind's garden and start cleaning things up so you can start moving forward. The other thing too that's I see the leak in the bucket is scheduling.
Mm.
So we could have a whole different podcast on this, but you say, well, why does some docs spend 30 minutes and why does some docs spend three? So scheduling can really cause some leaks in that bucket, spending too long, being inefficient, not what I call cluster and block booking, not staying on time. Patients don't want to wait 20 minutes. Greg, am I wrong here?
That's interesting. He'll know it when he sees this. But my chiropractor heard me compliment your scheduling, reached out to me, said, maybe I'll start trying to do that. And now, of course, we're booking way into the future. And to his credit, it really worked. And I'm just throwing stuff out here. I don't sense that this is a deep dive in anything. This is really just a conversation because I think we're going to rely upon the comments because we want our clients to tell us where we can help them the most, what the biggest issues are. So everybody watching this, I hope you'll dig deep and post a comment. But I had a really interesting comment with a really nice chiropractor, small town chiropractor this week, and he said, "I don't need any help getting more clients for the chiropractic um, practice because we were actually working on a device, and that was the whole conversation." But I found it interesting that he went off of that and said, he goes, "I'm completely maxed out." He said, "I spend 15 to 30 minutes with every patient. And if I don't, I'm not serving them." He went on to say, he's in a small town. There's no family doctor anymore. There's a urgent care clinic. And so people don't really build relationships with their family doctor the way they once did. So he's the go-to guy. And so they come to him with problems and they talk to him and he sees himself as that role. So to spend less than 15 minutes and generally 30 minutes, he's feeling like he's doing his community a disservice. We don't have to answer that right now, but I know that's not how you look at it. But I know you care just as much about your patients as this guy cares about his patients.
There's
So
efficiency. There's efficiencies, and we're not going to answer that. But that's a
yeah,
mindset.
but I
Is
but I want
is
to know. I said that for the sake of the viewers of this, if they want to hear a conversation about that, because you and
I
I
think that
will have a chat about that. Yeah,
I think we might have to make that its own topic. But so
yeah,
let's not tackle that right now. But I think a lot of it's mindset, and this is not to put everyone's got a different technique and a
hmm
different physical demands, and they can only handle so much or whatever. I get that. But if you're seeing one person every half an hour, I encourage you to think about seeing one person every 25 minutes. You follow? Is
hmm
push yourself a little bit. You'd be surprised when the time shrinks on how efficient you can be. Right? The analogy I use with my clients is what is the best quarter of basketball or football?
exactly. It's the
It's
last
it's
one.
the last half of
It's the
the
last two
fourth quarter,
minutes. Yeah.
the last 2 minutes, because what happens is it all comes down to there's no more time to mess around. You have to get those plays going in an efficient manner, and you get a lot of points in those last 2 minutes. So I encourage people to think about that. Is your schedule holding you back? And is there ways to increase efficiencies in order to see more people or bring someone on to see more people? Because the scheduling, if you're seeing one person every 30 to 45 minutes, that's gonna be an issue. You're not gonna be profitable unless, in this instance, this doc is charging $300-400 for that half an hour visit. Because unfortunately, we do run a visit, we have to be profitable. So those are the big leaks that I see, those 4 or 5 that we talked about. And if you can think about these 4 or 5 things and make changes to them, this is the way that I believe we should all grow. Because there's regular growth and there's like hyper growth. And those who experience hyper growth have the ability to bring in a ton of new patients and to keep them for longer periods. Right. So we talked about this. I was growing at a really good pace. I didn't want to do ads. Then we talked about my plan and bring on an associate, bringing on other people. I want to fill them up fast, not slow and steady. I want to bring them up fast. So we put the ads out, and the ads that we designed obviously bring the people in. We know that. So now they're coming in at a high pace, and I have the ability with my practice because I've done it for 17 years. I've plugged most of those holes. Not perfect, not by any means, but plugged most of those holes. And what happened to my practice, right? It's going out of control growth. And we're seeing that with some of the other clients that we work with. When we discuss these holes and plugging them, they're seeing percent increases, doubling, 75% increase in some of their months because they're tackling some of these holes in their bucket. So I encourage those of you listening is to think about that. And yes, be obsessed with getting new patients, but be equally obsessed is figuring some of this other stuff out so that bucket can fill and you can experience hyper growth.
But then don't they
Make
just have to
sense?
work all the time?
Yeah. Then the next step, so this is the beautiful thing about hyper growth is guess what? There's a lot of docs out there. This is probably another thing we should talk about, want an associate. And if you experience hyper growth, guess what? You can achieve that and you could be running things and sitting back and let somebody else be doing some of the lever pulling in your practice. But a lot of people want an associate, but they don't have the numbers for it and it can cause a lot of distress. Yeah, there's a way that I'm traveling this week, so I'm in a hotel right now, and our systems are in place, and those levers are being pulled by someone else because we've addressed those holes and we have the new patients rolling in. Yeah, you have to do a little bit of work for a little bit.
I'm also thinking of the people who haven't hired somebody. I'm thinking of some of our mutual clients who haven't hired an associate, but have got more free time too. There's more to it.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah,
I'm trying to set us up for a future conversation, Angelo. Play
yeah.
along, will
No,
you?
yeah, the conversation we've been talking about, it's not, we don't have to keep a secret, is we know people get busier by attracting new patients, right? We know that.
Right.
That we know. And we've seen over 50, 60, 70 offices go through that. And then we've been able to connect the people that work with me that also work with you. And we just see that they grow at a different pace. And I'm able to see it because with my clients, I track their stats.
Mhm.
I won't work with somebody unless they do that, right? So they have the onboarding process. So what we've noticed is people like literally close to doubling their practice because we're addressing both, right? We're addressing the leaks or the holes in the bucket, and we're bringing in the water into the bucket pretty fast, right? So it's pretty neat to see some of these things, these practices grow and grow. And yeah, I think it's got us thinking about a different offer or a different program, which we're working on the background. I'm
Right.
assuming that's what you were talking
No,
about.
I wasn't, but that's okay too. It's okay to
Okay,
let that
sorry,
out.
totally off topic, but no, we've been observing some really interesting growth and hyper growth. So it's got us thinking, how can we help all of you a little bit more?
Right. And I think it's
Yeah,
fair to say, maybe we're repeating, but topics you're curious about, even if it's just how to run the system, even if you've just come on board recently and you're struggling with something, this is the place to put it in this group. Put a post up, say, hey, everybody, how's this happening? And we'll be watching that, and that'll affect how we like you can always reach out to us directly, but the chances are if you're having an issue, so somebody else. Maybe we can help everybody all at once. I guess that's it.
absolutely, absolutely. And on that note, it posted because if we can't answer it, we'll bring in someone that can, right? If it's something that we can't answer, a topic, or if it's a front desk question, we got to bring an expert in that. We'll do that because what we're obsessed with is getting your clinics to that next level. So the purpose of these podcasts or these recordings is to for you guys to get value and to take it to the next level. So please, yes, post comments, give us some ideas on topics, and if we can't answer it, we'll get someone here that can and help you.
I tell everyone my evil plan is to make you profitable every month so you never turn us off. That's my big secret. That's my big business
Beautiful.
secret. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Angelo. Thanks,
No,
everybody, and we'll see you in the comments.